Hello everyone, welcome back. And now we would be starting the third chapter of the 10th class. We have completed two chapters and this is the third one. Now this is about the food security and the nutrition. So in this chapter we would be going to study about the food security, and the other thing is that relates to the nutrition. Now this is also more concerned about the mains rather than the studying the for the prelims. Now what would be our learning objectives? Our learning objectives would be here to study about the meaning, the definition of the food security, to know about the availability and the access to the food grains. Now to understand about the purchasing power and the agriculture policy, to gain the knowledge about the multidimensional nature of the poverty, to study about the nutrition and the health status and the policies in the Tamil Nadu. So last point I would be leaving and the other we would be doing. So whatever the part that relates to the Tamil Nadu, we would be leaving that. And for those people who are studying or the preparing for the Tamil Nadu PSC exam, for those people, these Tamil Nadu portion, they are very important for their exam because such beautifully they have mentioned. And I have seen the last chapter, that is the fifth chapter. It is about the the Tamil Nadu industries, and they have explained in such a great way, so that will help you clear your the PCS exam. Now introduction. So food is defined as an any substance that people eat or the drink to maintain the life and the growth. Now food security would denote a person's ability to eat enough, stay active and lead an healthy life. Now about the food security, the United Nations Food Security, Food and the Agriculture Organization, that is the FAO, it defines the food security as follow. So this is the definition they have taken from the FAO website itself. So that is the definition you have to remember for mains exam, and in the mains also in the GS3 part. Now food security exists when all people at all times have physical, social, economic access to sufficient, safe and nutritious food which meets their dietary needs and food preferences for an actively and healthy life. Now while this comprehensive definition highlights the need for the food to be the nutritious, in addition to that there are the certain other aspects that are required to be achieved nutrition security. Now, according to the eminent agricultural scientist or the father of the green revolution, Indian father of the Indian green revolution, the Dr. MS Swaminathan, he says that the nutrition security is, so such type of the quotes you can mention or you can write in your mains exam. So physical, economic and the social access to a balanced diet, safe drinking water, environment hygiene, primary health care and primary education is the nutrition security. So what is the definition according to M. Swaminathan? That there are the three components. One is physical, other is economic and the social. Now these three assessing the balanced diet, you have the safe water. What do you require? You require food, that is the diet. You require water, you require the hygiene, sanitization, and you require the health care when you get ill, and the education. So these are the five things that a person requires, and that is considered as a nutrition security. Now what are the physical components of the food and the nutrition security? The three basic components of the food and the nutrition security are They are availability, access, and the absorption. So three component things. So you can make and chart and in the exam also, like the nutrition security, and divide in the three parts, that is the food, the access, availability, and the absorption. Now, what do you mean by the availability of the food? Is the physical quality of the food stocks in the desired quantities, which is a function of the domestic production, the changes in the stocks and the imports. Now, the other thing is the access to the food. Now, one is the availability of the food. Is the food available or not? The other, are you having the access to the food? It is the primarily a matter of your purchasing power. So assess is regarding your the purchasing power. Are you having the capability? Are you having the enough money to buy the food or not? And is therefore closely linked with the capabilities and the employment opportunities to earn. The capabilities and the opportunities to earn. The capabilities and the opportunities in turn are related to one's access to the assets and the education. Are these things affordable? Are they in your limit or not? Then absorption of the food is the ability to the biologically utilize the food consumed. Are you mentally stable? Are you emotionally stable? Are you physically right? Is the food you are eating is utilized by your body or not? मीन्स हिंदी में बोलते हैं कि जो खाना आप खा रहे हो आपके लग भी रहा है या नहीं लग रहा है. Now next comes is the availability and the access to the food grains. That is the first topic we would be doing in the detail. This chapter again I am telling you only for the mains you have to study. No need to study this for the prelims. The food security, unless the current affair part that you have to do. Thus, the food security for the people in the country is not only dependent on the quantum of the food available, but also on the ability of the people to purchase, access the food, and to stay in the appropriate healthy environment. Now, just as the other developmental issues, food security of the people is also related to the country's overall development process. For example, there are some countries which do not have the money to buy the essential medicines. Now then the world organizations, they are helping and they are providing in the COVID time, because there are some countries, they does not have the ability to buy the PPE kits. Then they does not have the ability to buy the mask. They does not have the ventilators. So these are the basic things you require to keep. They does not have the medicines. So for those countries, it has to be provided. Now after independence, India choose to adopt a planned developmental model, which was focused or the emphasized from the USSR, erstwhile USSR. Now, food grains, after an initial focus on the agriculture, industrialization was given the priority. The recurrent droughts experienced by the India pushed her to be dependent on the imports of the food grains. However, the availability of the food exchange reserve could not permit open market purchases and import of the grains. India had to plead for the food gains from the richer countries at the concessional rates. Now the example is the at the time we do not at the time of the 1965, when the Indo-Pak war was going on, and the other we were lacking the food grains. So the Nara was that, or the slogan was given by our Prime Minister was Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan. Now, United States of the America extended the assistance through its public law, that is the 480 PL 480 scheme, to the India during early 1960s. A growing country with a massive population was perceived to be a potential candidate for the revolution. Now, the American administration and the philanthropic organization like the Ford Foundation, they formulated a plan to increase the food production in the country by increasing the high yielding variety of the wheat and the rice, that is called as your the green revolution. So here if we refer to the 1960s, that is the import of the wheat from the USA, and that is under the 480. That wheat was the same wheat they used to give to their cattle. So वो लोग जो अपने गाय भैंसों को खिलाते थे, they used to give to the cattle, that was given to the India. So at that time was the time when the India planted the crop. India had the agriculture on in the parks also. उस समय हमने पार्क्स में भी खेती करी है. तो हर एक जमीन का टुकड़ा वो जरूरी था जो कि हमें अन्न देने वाला था. Now this program was implemented in the selected district. That is the reason that the UPSC asks you why the first green revolution or the initial green revolution, it was introduced in the Punjab, Haryana and the western UP. Why it was there? Because these areas were having the irrigation, and the farmers, they were the prosperous. They were able to buy the HYV seed. These seeds have to be bought, and who have the capability to buy these seeds, and these were the farmers. The result were the promising, and the program was extended to cover a large number of the district. The Green Revolution was born in the country, paving a way for the self-sufficiency in the food and the grain production. Increased food grains production was made possible by the increased area cultivated with the HYV of the rice and the wheat, as also an increase in the yield of these major cereal crops. Area under the food grains was a little more than the 98 million hectare. During the early 1950s, the country was producing the just 54 million tons food grain then, with an average yield of the food grain was the 547 kg per hectare. The food situation has steadily improved over a period of the 65 years. Now, if you see that the Prime Minister's speech, that we does not only produce the we have the agriculture production, we only do not cultivate the food grains, but now India is self-sufficient in the food grain, and India has the capability to एक्सपोर्ट द फूड ग्रेन्स टू द अदर कंट्रीज. अब हमारे में इतनी शक्ति है कि हमारा पूरा देश भरपेट खा सकता है और हम उसको एक्सपोर्ट भी कर सकते हैं दूसरी कंट्रीज को. द थिंग ओनली द प्रॉब्लम इज दैट ऑफ द कोल्ड स्टोरेज. इंडिया हैज टू वर्क ऑन द कोल्ड स्टोरेज. 2019, remember that from the geographical period, that is 2019, we had a bumper crop because it was we had the extensive the monsoon was there. And the same way, if you have I have explained you the El Nino and La Nino concept. So when there was in the India was the rainfall, the same time there were the drought in the Australia. सो भारत में जो है बारिश हुई, बारिश मानसून अच्छा हुआ, क्रॉप अच्छी हुई, और वहीं देयर वर दी ड्रॉट इन दी ऑस्ट्रेलिया. सो डू रिलेट टू दी एल नीनो एंड दी ला नीनो कंसेप्ट विद दिस इकोनॉमिक्स एंड दी हिस्ट्री. सो दैट ड्रॉट इट ब्रॉट द फॉरेस्ट फायर. सो आपने सुना होगा, न्यूज में था अबाउट द फॉरेस्ट फायर्स. देयर वर दी ह्यूज फॉरेस्ट फायर इन दी ऑस्ट्रेलिया. And that the UPSC can ask you this question in your mains or the prelims about the La Nino or the El Nino. Now, area under the food grain cultivation has grown to the 122 million hectares with an increase of the five-fold increase in the food grain production. Yield of the food grains have increased fourfold between the time of the independence and at present. This growth in the food grain production was made possible by the HYV program, which was implemented as a package. apart from the introducing the fertilizer responsive high yielding varieties of the rice and the wheat, it ensured the availability of the subsidized chemical fertilizers for the farmers. Now cheaper farm credit was disbursed to the farmers through the cooperative bank and the societies. Minimum the support price for the crops were the announced at the that MSP was announced at the beginning of the season, and the state procured the harvested grains through the Food Corporation of the India. The FCI had built huge store godowns and built the buffer stocks of the food grain during the harvest season to be distributed all through the year. Now, if there was a benefit, there were the negative things of the green revolution were over there. Now, if you have the negative things related to the green revolution, what would be they? So I would be telling the said that it was promised that the canal would be built from the Satluj and it will go to the Yamuna. A link would be made and it will be beneficial for the Haryana, and the water of the Ravi Byas was divided between the three states. The water, that is the 17 tons at that time, ton liter at that time, it was to be divided into the three states. One was the Rajasthan, the other was between the Haryana after the partition. But the after the not the partition, the division or the forming of the new states, then again the now it has the issue has arisen because the Supreme Court have given the judgment in the favor of the Haryana, and Supreme Court has said that to implement a decision as early as possible. But the Punjab is saying that it cannot do so. If it does so, then there would be the clash or the riot situation, and it would be not be handled. Now there are some negative effect of the water itself, because if such a scenario would be there, the agriculture would be affected. If the agriculture would be affected, then these extremist groups that are in the Punjab, they would be supported, and the infiltration of the money in our economy would be done, and the Punjab would again raise its voice for the partition or a separate state, and the Khalistan issue, it will again rise. Now though they does not have the groundwater level, it has dropped. So if the water is further divided, it will not have the water, and the state that is known for its 5 rivers will not have the water at all. So this is an example or the negative effect that happened, or you can mention about the negative effect. So much fertilizers have been implemented that it has become a cancer state. Example, Bhatinda. From Bhatinda to the Jodhpur, a special train that is called as the cancer train, it runs. So you have to think beyond the textual things. You have to write the things which you study in your the current affairs with the static part, that is the notebook. NCRT with the NCRT or the Tamil Nadu SCRT book with the current knowledge in the mains. Now I am trying to build your perspective how you would be writing an answer. Now not only you should mention the positive impact, do mention the negative also, and at last in the conclusion do give a solution, because you are going to become an IAS officer and your responsibility is to guide the government. आप guide करोगे government को कि ऐसा करना चाहिए, ऐसे होना चाहिए. Now minimum support price, what is it? Now this is important because every year you will find that the MSP has been announced. Recently the MSP of the sugar cane, it has been raised. Sugar cane का MSP 10 रुपये बढ़ा दिया गया है. So it has been increased by 10 rupees. Now the minimum support price is a fixed price, and remember that who decides the MSP? So can you tell me who decides the MSP? Do tell me in the comment section. And I will give you an hint, cabinet committee, and you have to tell me which cabinet committee decides the MSP. Now minimum support price is a fixed price, and fixed by an expert group for a particular crop by considering the various costs involved in the cultivation of that crop. After announcing the MSP, the state will open the procurement centers in the places where these crops are widely grown. Now, however, the farmers are free to sell in the open market now if they get a better price for their crop produce. Now, on the other hand, if the open market price is lower than the MSP, the farmers would get an assured price, that is the MSP, by the seller by selling their produce to the FCI, जिनको हम हिंदी में बोलते हैं सरकारी मंडी में बेच के उनको उनका जो है प्राइस मिल जाएगा. Now, the rapid increase in the food grain production was accompanied by the appropriate technological intervention in the dairy, poultry, and the fisheries sector. As a result, the milk production in the country witnessed an 8-fold increase, the egg production grew by the 40-fold, and the fish production by the 13-fold between the time of the independence and the mid 2000s. However, India could not succeed in attaining the self-sufficiency in the production of the pulses and the oil seeds. Therefore, India depends on the import to meet the requirement of the people. Now, there is a mission by the government that has been launched and that caters the oil seed. So, the target is that we not only increase our oil seed production, but also we became the larger exporter. It is not a department, it is a cabinet committee. Anchal, it is a cabinet committee, and cabinet committee headed by the Prime Minister. And tell me, there are the 8 cabinet committees. You have to tell me one cabinet committee out of that which is headed by the Prime Minister. Recently, Prime Minister decided that there should be 10 rupees price hike in the sugar cane, because this season is the farmer they cultivate the sugar. So always remember that the MSP is announced before the sowing of the crop. Now, public distribution system. The Tamil Nadu has adopted a universal PDS, public distribution system. The rest of the states in India had a targeted PDS. Now, this can be a question for your this year prelims or the mains, because PDS was so much in the news, because so much the food has to be distributed. Now, under the universal PDS, all the family ration card holders are the entitled to supplies from the PDS. Now, in the targeted PDS, the beneficiaries are identified based on this certain criteria and given the entitlement, leaving out the rest. Both the union and the state government subsidize the supplies distributed through the PDS. The level and the quantum of the subsidy also varied across the states. Now, subsequently, the National Food Security (NFSA) it was passed by the Indian Parliament in 2013. NFSA it covers the 50% of the urban household, 75% of the rural household. Now, the household are known as the propriety or the priority households identified based on the set of the criteria. Yes, Achal, this time you have answered it correctly. Now, priority households of the country now have the right to food supply through the PDS. Now, the union government supplies the rice at the rate of the 3 per the kilogram, wheat at the rate of the 2 per kilogram, and the millet at the rupees 1 per kilogram under the National Food Security Act. Now, Tamil Nadu continues to have the universal system of the PDS and supplies the rice at the free of the cost to the old card holders. The National Food Security Act in the Tamil Nadu, that is for the Tamil Nadu people. Now, next comes is the role of the consumer cooperatives in the food security. The consumer cooperatives play an important role in the supply of the quality goods at a reasonable rate to the common people. Now, there is a 3-tier structure of the consumer cooperative societies in the India. They are primary consumer cooperative societies, central consumer cooperative stores, and the state level consumer federation. More than 50,000 village levels societies are engaged in the distribution of the consumer goods in the rural areas. Now, with the cooperative societies, there is a question for you. Now, do you have to tell me the cooperative society which schedule, sorry, which which is the article which deals with the or the cooperative society, and in which part the cooperative societies are mentioned, and the amendment you have to tell me. So first is the article, the part in which the cooperative societies are there, and you have to tell the amendment which is concerned, and the DPSP which is concerned with the. So you have to tell, because these things, if you know, you would be able to write a good answer, because the economic, it does not relate to only economic. Food security is not about studying only economics, it is also studying the other aspects like the polity. Do write these things in your answer. Now this scheme is playing important role in the food security in the India. For example, out of the all the fair price shop running in the Tamil Nadu, around 94 are being run by the cooperatives. Buffer stock is the stock of the food grain, namely the wheat food grains are stored in the granaries. The buffer stock is done to distribute the food grains in the deficit areas and among the poorer strata of the society at a lower than the market price, also known as the issue price. Now, this also helps to resolve the problem of the storage of the shortage of the food during the adverse weather conditions or during the period of the calamity. Then comes is your the purchasing power. Next topic is about the purchasing power. Now, what do you mean by the purchasing power? Now, purchasing power is the value of the currency. It is expressed in the terms of the amount of the goods or the services that one unit of the money can buy. Now, price increases, purchasing power declines, and the vice versa. So यहाँ पर समझने की बात, important line here is for the exam point is your the, if the price increases the purchasing power, जैसे ही मूल्य बढ़ेगा आपकी जो है खरीदने की क्षमता घट जाएगी. So what I want to say here that, for example, if now the price of the tomato, 1 kilo tomato, the market price is 70 rupees. Now earlier at one time the price was the 10 rupees per kilogram. Earlier you used to buy the 5 kilo for the 50 rupees, or the 70 rupees you used to buy the 7 kg. Now in these 70 you are buying 1 kg. So what is the difference? But this is the difference between 1 kilo and the 7 kg. So as the price has been risen of the tomato, the purchasing power it has been less. तो जैसे ही प्राइस बढ़ा है, एक व्यक्ति की खरीदने की क्षमता वो घट गई है. Now factors affecting the purchasing power. First is the overpopulation. What does the overpopulation means? Overpopulation means that there would be a demand. If you have the less commodity in the market and there are the more buyers for the product, ultimately it means the demand will be high. And if the demand will be high, the prices will go, it will rise. So the normal price level will go higher, and so it affect the purchasing power. So same thing that I have explained. The second thing is the increasing prices of the essential goods. Now even though there have been a constant growth in the GDP and the growth opportunities, the Indian economy, there has been steady increase in the prices of the essential goods. The continuous rise in the prices, it erodes the purchasing power and the adversely affect the poor people. Now with the crop like the tomato, the potato, or the onion, that is called as the top. Now the prices of these are rising, and who would be most affected? The poor would be affected. A middleman and a rich person, he can buy. A middleman, earlier he used to buy 1 kg, now he will buy half kg, but he will buy. But the poor, he will not buy, he will stop making the vegetable. So there was a news in the today's newspaper. So consumption shock severe. Economic recovery will take longer. Poorest hit the hardest. So if you are reading the newspaper this time, the my insight, it says that the maximum question from the economics and the environment, because the economy is so badly hit, they would be requiring such people who are expert in the economics, who would be able to make efforts to stabilize the economy. So UPSC would be asking you more questions from the economics. So at the do study the newspaper, have a eye on the newspaper what is going. So the RBI ने बोला है कि consumption shock वो severe है. We have studied what is consumption. It means that the consumption, it has been reduced. Economic recovery, it will take longer. और सबसे ज़्यादा hit कौन हुआ है? The poor is hit. And it is the heading of the Indian Express first page. It is the heading. And now you have to realize that the government spending is required more and the more. The other thing comes is that the demand for the goods. Now when the demand for the good increases, so for example the demand for the tomato, when it will increase, the price of the good will increase. So with the increase in the demand, the price will increase, and ultimately the opposite effect would be on the purchasing power. The purchasing power would be affected. Now whose purchasing power would be affected? The poor's purchasing power would be affected. The rich can now also, because he has the money, he has the purchasing power. Now the price of the goods affect the value of the currency. Now when the price increases, the purchasing power decrease. जैसे ही मूल्य बढ़ेगा तो purchasing power घट जाएगी, and the value of the currency वो भी घट जाएगी. Now value of the currency we have discussed in the earlier chapters. There I have told you value is determined in with behalf of the purchasing power. वैल्यू कैसे बताई जाती है कि आप जो है रुपी में कितनी चीज खरीद पा रहे हो. द थिंग यू आर एबल टू बाय विद द रुपीज इन योर हैंड, दैट विल अफेक्ट द योर द value of the currency. So value of the currency, it is related to the purchasing power. वो purchasing power से related है, और उससे जो आपकी वैल्यू है करेंसी की, इंडियन रुपी, इट विल ऑल्सो फॉल. नाउ नेक्स्ट कम्स इज द पॉवर्टी एंड द इनइक्वालिटी. नाउ डू रिमेंबर द परचेसिंग पावर पैरिटी. Now there exists a huge economic disparity in the Indian economy. The proportion of the income and the asset owned by the top 10% of the Indian goes on increasing. Now this had led to an increase in the poverty level in the society. Now generally the purchasing power is affected by the poverty and unequal distribution of the wealth also. So this was an important thing, that you purchasing power, because this will help you in the exam. Now purchasing power parity, unless you will not mention the current scenario, जब तक आप करंट नहीं लिखोगे मेंस में आपको आंसर नहीं मिलेगा. एंड थिंक डिफरेंटली, बिकॉज अल्टीमेटली दिस इज अ कंपटीशन. यू हैव टू राइट द डिफरेंट थिंग्स दैट द अदर्स आर राइटिंग. जो दूसरे लिख रहे हैं उससे आपको अलग लिखना पड़ेगा, जब भी आपको हाईएस्ट मार्क्स मिलेंगे, एंड देन ओनली यू विल बी गेटिंग द योर चॉइस ऑफ द सर्विस एंड योर चॉइस ऑफ द स्टेट. फॉर एग्जाम्पल इफ यू वांट टू बी सर्विंग इन द दिल्ली, तो आपको जो है हाईएस्ट मार्क्स स्कोर करना पड़ेगा. For example, if I can give you the example of the Tina Dabi, she wanted to serve in the Haryana, was her first choice. With his first rank also, she was not able to get the Haryana. Then she got the Rajasthan as the cadre. Now purchasing power parity. A concept related to the purchasing power is the purchasing power parity, which we have discussed earlier also. PPP is an economic theory that estimates the amount that needs to be adjusted to the price of an item. The triple P can be used to compare the country's income level and the other relevant economic data concerning the cost of the living or the possible rate of the inflation and the deflation. Recently, India became the third largest economy in terms of the PPP. China became the largest economy, pushing the US to the second position. So this we have discussed earlier in the detail. Now next comes is the agriculture policy in the India. The new agriculture policy based on the export of the agricultural goods was announced by the central government 2018 में, और it is based on the export of the agriculture goods पर ये based है. Now this policy states that the to remove the export restrictions on the most of the organic and the processed agricultural products. Now agriculture policy of a country is mostly designed by the government by raising the agricultural production and the productivity, and also for the raising level of the income and the standard of the living of the farmer within a definite time frame. This policy is formulated for all around and comprehensive development of the agriculture sector. The following are the some of the important objectives. So what are the objectives? These are very important for your exam point of view. Raising the productivity of the inputs. Now one of the outcome is that the okay, so the raising of the productivity of the inputs. Now one of the important objectives of the India's agricultural policy is to improve the productivity of the inputs so purchased, like the HYV seeds, fertilizers, pesticides, irrigation projects, etc. Now next comes is the raising the value added per hectare. Agriculture policy is to increase per hectare value added by the raising the productivity of the agricultural in general and the productivity of the small and the marginal holding in particular. Now the agriculture in general, remember that, and productivity in the particular. Now protecting the interest of the poor farmers. The agriculture policy is proposed to protect the interest of the poor and the marginal farmers by abolishing the intermediaries. Now like the direct transfer of the benefits through the land reforms, expanding the institutional credit support to the poor farmers and the Kisan credit card, and the so other things you can mention here. Then the modernizing the agriculture sector. Here the policy supports, it includes the introduction of the modern technology in the agriculture operation and the application of the improvised the agriculture input like the HYV seed, fertilizer, etc. Environmental degradation. Agriculture policy of the India has set another objective to check the environmental degradation of the natural base of the Indian agriculture, removing the bureaucratic obstacles. The policy had set up the another objective to remove the bureaucratic obstacles of the farmers, cooperative societies, and the self-help institutions so that they can work independently. Now next topic is about the multidimensional nature of the poverty. The multidimensional poverty index was launched by the UNDP. So remember, this is for the pre के लिए इसको याद रखना that the MDNP is launched by the UNDP, and उसके अलावा plus the Oxford Poverty Human Development Initiative. It was started in the 2010. The basic philosophy and the significance of the MPI, that is the multidimensional the poverty index, is that it is based on the idea that the poverty is undimensional and that it is rather a multidimensional. So जो पावर्टी है वो यूनिडाइमेंशनल नहीं है, वो मल्टी डायमेंशनल है. जो मल्टी डायमेंशनल पावर्टी है, इट इज मेड अप ऑफ द सेवरल फैक्टर that constitute the poor people experience of the deprivation, such as the health, education, living standard, income, disempowerment, quality of the work, and the threat for the violence. Now what you don't have to study, this Tamil Nadu portion you don't have to study. Now these 10 indicators, learn them by heart. तो ये जो नीचे जो 10 इंडिकेटर दिए हुए हैं, these are asked and every year one question comes from your the इंडेक्स एंड द इंडेक्सेस से क्वेश्चन आ ही जाता है आपका, रिपोर्ट्स एंड द इंडेक्सेस। सो दिस इंडिकेटर्स भी पूछे यूपीएससी ने, न्यूट्रिशन, चाइल्ड मोर्टेलिटी, ईयर्स ऑफ द स्कूलिंग, स्कूल अटेंडेंस, कुकिंग फ्यूल, सैनिटेशन, वाटर, इलेक्ट्रिसिटी, फ्लोर assets, and the three major are the health, education and the living standards. And we are leaving this part because these are related to the Tamil Nadu. Now, nature of the health status. So, the brief one we would be doing. Status of the nutrition. That is, we noted the earlier that the food security include the nutrition security too. Though our country has reached the self-sufficiency in the food production, the nutrition status of the population has not seen corresponding levels of the improvement. In 2015-16, 27% of the rural women and the 16% of the urban women in the age group, that is the 15 to the 49 years, were counted as the undernourished or the uh, chronically energy deficient by the National Family Health Survey. Now, more than the half of the women in the reproductive age, that is the 15 to 49 year in the both rural and the urban India, were anemic in the 2015 and the 16. As regard of the children, about 60% of the rural and the 56% of the urban children in the age group 6 to the 59 months are counted to the anemic. In the 2015-16, about 41% of the rural and the 31% of the urban children are stunted, that is they are not of the required height in correspondence to their age. Another indicator of the nutrition deficiency among the children is the underweight, which is the weight in the relation to the age. In India 2015-16, about 20% of the children in the age group of the 6 to 59 months in the rural and the urban India are estimated to the underweight. Now this part you don't have to do. The other part it relate to the Tamil Nadu. So last part we don't have to do. So we are leaving this, and this was in all in this chapter. So today I am doing only these two chapters. Tomorrow I would be doing the next chapter, that is the last chapter for the 10th class, and that is the government and the taxes, and tomorrow we would be completing the 10th class. तो कल हम जो है कंप्लीट कर देंगे, हमारी 10th क्लास जो है वो कंप्लीट हो जाएगी. So 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th economics would be completed by tomorrow, and then 11th and the 12th would be left. Almost I would be taking the 14 days for that. So in next 2 weeks your economics would be done. Before the prelim itself we would be doing the economics would be completed. So that was all. Thank you all of you.